Hello and welcome to Thinking Forward. On this week's show, we prove that big can not only be beautiful, it can also be sustainable and environmentally friendly. We're in the Waipa district, and this is the farm of John Hayward and Susan O'Regan.
We bought the farm 6 years ago. It was 99 hectares producing 77,000 milk solids. It was a farm which was farmed in an all-grass system and had an old 16-a-side cowshed on it. It didn't have an up-to-date effluent system, and the rules were, when we bought it, was we had to buy a farm that we thought we could improve. Stock numbers have changed. Our herd originally was 250 Jersey cows. We are now milking, well, last season we milked 400 spit calving, 300 Jerseys and 150 Friesians. This year we're 50-50 and we've put another 100 cows on. Since the initial purchase, we've built a new cow shed. We did that in year one. We've built a feed pad. We've put an effluent system in, we have put in silage bunkers, and we've also bought the neighbour's farm, which consists of another 141 hectares. We've managed to lift our production from year one of 83,000 milk solids to this year we're targeting 215,000. So we've made quite a few changes.
The changes are getting great results and often involve non-traditional methods.
Before we came here, we had a Jersey herd, so we've been changing our herds in the last 3 years. We need, with our payment structure with OCD, we need to get our fat to protein ratio right. Unfortunately, with our Jersey herd, our fat goes through the roof, so it doesn't leave us with a very good ratio. And the lower our ratio is, it actually costs us money in our pay up. So our vision was, we've got a really good Jersey herd, so we can keep them, but let's grow a Friesian herd and use them to balance out our fat to ratio. So we're calving our Jersey herd in the spring and we calve our Friesian herd in the winter. That's a herd that we've put together over the last 3 years, and hopefully from now on we can stabilise it and work on where we're heading. With our Jersey herd, we're focused on selecting bulls which are high protein, so not necessarily the highest BW bulls, but the bulls that we think are going to be the most cost-effective heifers coming into the herd. We started spit calving when we bought the second farm 3 years ago. It was a move that we could capitalise on what was happening around us in terms of cow prices, and also leaving one dairy company and going to another dairy company. So we sold our shares out of Fonterra and then went with Open Country Dairies, and they obviously pay us more for producing milk outside the time when everybody else is producing milk. So it's become a real driver for us to capitalise on shoulder milk, winter milk premiums, and it's also helping us develop our style of farming going forward.
Much better for cash flow as well. You've got steady checks coming through, even through the off period. So, and it appealed to our idea around having so much money invested in terms of the infrastructure. If we had it actually working every day of the year, it would be a much better sort of economic exercise.
Pasture is basically a component of the feed that we feed our cows now. So we aim to harvest obviously as much as we possibly can, but we also run the theory that grass grows grass. So we don't plan for our cows to eat below sort of 1600-1700, and obviously we want them to go into around 2500. We work on a theory that our grazing is bite size. So if the cows are going into paddocks that are below 2500, we believe they can only eat a kilogram of dry matter an hour, where if they're going into paddocks which are above 2,500, they can eat 2 kilograms an hour. So obviously we're quite keen for them to go into pasture which is longish or above 2,500. We see effluent as a really valuable source on farm. It's a product that has allowed us to reduce our chemical fertiliser application on the farm. It's allowed us to grow our crops really cheaply and also our pasture. We now cover 90 hectares with effluent out of our 140 hectare dairy platform. So for us it's a real plus. And with the feed pad we catch a lot of solids and we spread them obviously on maize ground and well, basically all over the farm really. So yeah, we love effluent.
So can you tell us more about your feed pad as well?
So feed pad is a real integral part of our dairy platform, I guess. Our cows are there pretty much every day. So it's allowed us to feed a lot more feed because our aim is to fully feed our cows every day. It's allowed us to utilise feed, probably 95% of our feed to be utilised. And it's given us options to milk at different times of the year when everybody else is not milking. So, and it also uses as a nutrient catch with our weeping wall at the back, collecting our solids. So it's been a great asset.
Another asset has been their son Ben, who accelerated their learning curve about environmental issues.
Ben at the time was about 10 or 11 and he attended Puahui School, it's a local school here, and it's an Enviro school, and they were approached by Kids Teaching Kids, which is an Australian organisation, to send a delegation of Kiwi kids to come and talk at a water conference about water quality issues that New Zealand face. Ben was selected with a handful of other students to go. As a diligent parent, I said I'll go as well. So we went to Adelaide and watched these 10 or 11-year-olds present to 1,800 or so Australian and other international students about the issues that we were facing. And I guess it was during that time that, although we had a rudimentary understanding around water quality, it really crystallised for us some of the things that we were doing that we could do better, and that's really how it kind of happened. We learned a lot about banded kokapoo and all sorts of critters in our streams, mainly through Ben. So it was a bit of an awakening, I guess.
Yeah, it was an eye-opener, and I guess for me it was kids teaching adults. And with the industry moving forward in the manner that it has in the last 5 years, I guess for us we wanted to be at the front of that rather than trying to catch up from behind. So since then we have obviously fenced all our waterways, planted riparian strips. Right now we're just finished fencing all our wetlands. We see them as quite valuable parts of our business going forward in regards to doing nutrient budgets. Our theory in business is that we need to be somewhere where everybody else isn't before they're there. So we work on the theories, you've got to look beyond what you see. So we try and plan to be where we need to be 6 months ahead of time. And that goes along with obviously the winter milking, split calving, and just changing the whole style of our farming.
John and Susan are really ambitious, and not only for their farm's financial yield. We'll hear more about that later, but first, let's hear from our experts. This week we hear from Joanna Nash from Waikato Regional Council and Glenn Beale from Campbell Tyson. I asked Glenn why he thought the farm was getting such great results from a non-typical dairy farm.
You're right, Sarah, it's not a typical looking dairy farm. I was quite surprised when I saw it myself, but you know, meeting John is clearly quite driven and very hard working. And I had quite a long chat to Susan as well. She's very, very passionate and knowledgeable about the farm, so it's clear that the two of them together are what's making this farm work so well. But looking at the farm itself, you know, we've got lots of steep faces and there's a big gully running through the middle of it. And John's ponded that so that he catches all the water that comes off the hills. One, it stops the leachate going out of the property, but two, it means he's got a good water supply for irrigation. So he's growing maize, he's growing lots of extra pasture through the irrigation, and that's the first step in increased production. Second thing is he's turning his whole property into an income producing machine. There's steep sidings, he's planting out manuka, and he'll have an extra income stream from the bees. So that's very sensible. One other big thing for John and Susan is that they haven't spent as much money as other people might have on the dairy farm. You know, the land is cheaper land. You know, we're seeing some incredible prices elsewhere in the district at the moment, but this land is, like I say, not typical, so he's paid a lot less for it. It means that he's been able to put some money back into infrastructure. So there's a great feed pad there, he's got a good irrigation system, he's got good infrastructure in terms of his fencing and his racing and all the rest of it as well. So that all helps make the farm more economic. So they've done a really good job on that. A couple of other things too, you know, when you talk to John, he's got a very, very clear vision of what they're trying to achieve on the farm. So some of the things that maybe are outside of my field of expertise but seem to be working for John are things like he's got a Jersey herd and a Friesian herd. He's quite clear that he doesn't want crossbreds, that he thinks he gets better production out of purebred herds. And that seems to be working because the performance would say that it is. Now it's not normal, but it works. Equally, he's got some quite strong views about pasture growth and how much he should let the cows eat that pasture down. He only feeds them what they need, he doesn't worry about what's left in the pasture, and he moves them on. And that's maybe not quite so normal either, but it seems to work for him. So it's all those things that, you know, that clarity of vision that John's got that really seem to make a difference. And you know, I think John has a real plan. He talks about producing 600 kgs per cow. He will achieve it because he'll keep working away and chipping away at the things he needs to do to get to that level of production.
I met Joanna Nash on farm and talked with her about how the council is working with farmers like John and Susan.
We've been working with John and Susan for the last 3 years. We put together an environmental program agreement with them in 2012. And since then we've been working on a number of projects on the farm, looking at the sensitive areas on farm and protecting them.
So can you tell us in more detail about the different projects you've undertaken?
In the last 3 years, most of the work's been focused on riparian management, including wetland protection. So John and Susan have done extensive riparian protection on the farm. And in particular, which is quite interesting, they've fenced off a lot of their wetland areas on farm, and they're quite big areas. So that's including fencing and planting them up as well.
What is the Waikato Regional Council doing to encourage other farmers to undertake this sort of work?
So back in 2012, when we put together an agreement with John and Susan, they were eligible for 35% funding in this catchment, and that's ongoing, that agreement. So for future works that we do on the property, they're getting 35% funding to put fences around their wetlands, bush blocks, marginal land on farm, and 35% funding for purchasing plants and putting plants in the ground. So it's a pretty good incentive. Just recently we've done further prioritisation in the Waipa catchment, and we're looking at 2 particular sub-catchments, the Kaniwhaniwha and the Mokurorua. Those 2 catchments are eligible for 70% funding, which is a big step up. We've got the funding through Waikato Regional Council and the Waikato River Authority to provide farmers with that extra funding to help them get over the line and get retiring these marginal bits of land on their property.
And have you seen good uptake from farmers to start undertaking this work and apply for the funding?
Yeah, so we've had 2 open days, 1 in each catchment, and we're really pleased with the response. A lot of farmers came along and were interested in what we had to offer, and so this is our first year that we've had the 70% funding available, and so we're just starting to implement works now, but yeah, really good uptake.
Can the council and farmers work together to achieve better sustainability?
Here at the Waikato Regional Council, we've got a team of catchment management officers that are there to give advice and information to farmers, and also in a lot of cases funding to help them achieve their environmental goals on farm. So yeah, we're out there to help the farmers and give them advice where need be and try and get better results for everyone.
John and Susan's farm in the Waipa district is big, unconventional and successful. The steep sidings have enabled another environmental tick as well as a potential source of income.
The main bush block we are planning to kiwi to it. Well, we're certainly looking into doing that. At present it's all fenced and ready to go. But coming from the main bush block is we have fingers of bush which aren't fenced. So in the next 12 months we're hoping to fence them and then ring plant them with manuka. So that'll take up some of our land for Comvita. So we've also entered into a contract with Comvita this year to plant manuka. It'll take us 4 years to plant 20 hectares, which in that point we will get a return from the honey flow on a percentage basis. So we see that as quite an exciting thing to do because it's ticking so many boxes. It allows us to reduce our nitrogen leaching, it stabilises land which is going to erode, and it also gives you opportunity to make money off land which is possibly not as profitable as other parts of the farm. They want a minimum of 20 hectares planted in manuka. That's the size that they want. And with that deal is they supply all the manuka, they take care of the planting. I mean, obviously there's a cost involved in it. I think it's around about $2,000 a hectare to establish. And they plant 1,000 stems in a hectare. It takes, I think, 3 years before we start getting production off it. And within 6 years they should be up to full production. So it's an opportunity for us to take land which is marginal and plant it into something that allows us to make money off in the future. So we just get a percentage cut out of the honey flow. I think in the short term our plan is to cover our feed pad. I think that'll be beneficial for us going forward, and grow more feed on farm so we're more sustainable, we're not so vulnerable to the markets bringing feed in the gate, and also probably just doing what we do better than what we do now.
And then what about in the long term?
I think in the long term we can see ourselves going to all autumn calving. That allows us to grow more feed on farm. So this year we grew 26 hectares of maize, and those paddocks go back into annuals. So we're harvesting 32 tonne of feed off those paddocks. If we go all autumn calving, it allows us to plant 60 hectares of maize. So we bring more of our land into that bracket that we're yielding 32 tonne of feed off, and with that we won't have to bring so much palm kernel in the gate. So for the cost of what we spend on palm kernel, we put half of it into maize, and we're basically doubling our feed.
John and Susan are obviously committed to environmental issues, but sometimes feel frustrated at the way things are presented to farmers.
Well, firstly, I don't think farmers take too kindly to being told what to do on their own land. And I think just passing carte blanche rules by dairy companies or councils is not a really good way to try and encourage buy-in on these issues. I think if farmers are enticed in terms of carrots rather than beaten with sticks to get things done, I think you'll find a better uptake. And I think the messages that are out there are just a bit too garbled. There is information out there, but it's not clearly and succinctly presented. I kind of think we're reasonably intelligent people, and we've had to delve pretty deeply to try and get answers to a lot of questions. So I think councils can really benefit from picking 3 really important, compelling issues in each individual catchment and try and entice farmers to address those 3 issues in their business practices, and do it in a manner that improves their businesses as opposed to imposing registrational restrictions on them. And I think you'll find that there'll be much more positive uptake and a greater buy-in if it's done in that manner rather than harsh regulation and big sticks.
This couple have big dreams and are well on their way to fulfilling them. They have been nominated for an Environment Award and hope that any success they may have will encourage others to see that being environmentally conscious is no longer just a choice. But big dreams need big thinking time, and John showed us his perfect place for that.
Our theory in business is that we need to be somewhere where everybody else isn't before they're there. So we work on the theories, you've got to look beyond what you see. We try and plan to be where we need to be 6 months ahead of time. So Sarah, this is one of our favourite spots on the farm. It's midway up the farm, so we're right smack in the middle of the farm here. So it gives us an opportunity to look from here, we can see the whole dairy platform. And also just down below us here, if we pop over the hill and have a look, you can see some dams that we created last year with the idea of catching any sediment that comes out of these hills. So before they hit the waterway, they're into a sediment ponds, and then they get caught there, and then the fresh water goes back out and is filtered back through some swamps. With doing that, we've retired a hectare of land around them, and we've also retired this whole bush block that's come around beside us. Any gap in this bush block now, it's going to be rung fenced with manuka. So it's going to be part of the 5 hectares that goes into manuka this year. We're really quite excited about that. It's all fenced and ready to go. They plant this autumn, as well as all the wetlands. They're planting that this autumn as well. So we've made a real huge drive towards getting as much covered this year as possible. It gives us an opportunity here to see all our cropland that we're using. There's 26 hectares there that's gone into maize. It's been harvested and it's already replanted, and annuals have just germinated. So we use most of those paddock for our winter milk cows over the next few months. So yeah, I sit up here and I look and get a few ideas of where we're going to go next. Everybody in New Zealand leaves a footprint on the world today. It's not just dairy farmers. And I guess the question I ask a lot of people is, when they wake up in the morning, do they actually think they leave a footprint on the world today? And a lot of people don't.